And welcome back in a very new space for us. It's super cool to be in the metaverse doing this podcast with you guys. I want to welcome both Faisal and Begum from Ilsur. Welcome, guys.
Hi, good to be here.
Hi guys, thank you for having us. Very excited to chat about the metaverse.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Tom's going to be joining us very shortly. He's just doing an outfit change. But just as an introduction, Elsor is the world's first design-oriented metaverse platform, transitioning the world into the metaverse by creating unique spaces. Super excited to get down and into the details of this. Could you tell us a little bit more about what you guys do?
Yes, sure. I can start it off and then hand it over to Begum maybe to talk a little bit more in detail. But in general, Illuser is as you said, a design-oriented metaverse platform, and we currently have three divisions in the company. So we have Illuser Platform, Illuser Studio, and Illuser Tech. Illuser Platform is the kind of B2C division where we create spaces, experiences, a full-scale platform, which is cross-chain, meaning it's built on multiple blockchains, and it has all the necessary features that you would expect, like a NFT marketplace, customizable avatars, native token that you can use as well. And then we have Illusa Studio, which is the B2B division, which focuses on building platforms and experiences for other companies. So we've worked with companies like BMW, TRT, which is a Turkish radio and television corporation, ABB Robotics, and some other global brands as well. And then we have Illusa Tech, which is currently designing a metaverse engine as well as a design-oriented asset generator. And that is really just to give accessibility to creators and developers as well who want to build for the metaverse, as well as allowing just the general public who want to generate their own assets using our very kind of specific design language as well. So that's kind of an overview of where we are at the moment in terms of the different divisions and our focus in the metaverse. But I can let Begum maybe talk a little bit more in detail and give you some ideas about the projects that we've worked on and what we do.
Thank you, Faisal. The experience that we have from architecture to combine it with future technologies, we are creating bespoke, custom experiences, which is very important for us. So design is in very much core of everything that we create in Resort. And the scale that we operate in Resort, the designs that we do is from a face mask to an urban meta city. So we are focusing on creating various different scales and experiences together with that created accordingly.
Amazing. And I think, when it comes to the experience, design plays a major role in this. The user experience, from a user experience perspective or even from a design perspective. How did you see the adoption so far? Of course, everybody's interested to experience the metaverse, but how, in your opinion, what do you think the adoption rate is at the moment, and how do you feel that's going to progress in the future?
Maybe I can take that question. The adoption rate, of course, I think there's a gap between what has been projected and the reality in terms of what people are expecting for that. When we think of from the brand's perspective, the adoption rate from our side is quite high because if you're trying to create custom virtual experiences, the brands that we're working on, our projects, the specific need of it needs some time to design, curate it, tailor it for its needs. So such projects take time, and every month is like a year in this times that we are in, right? So as we develop, the technologies are getting advanced. So the adoption rate is not a concern for us. It's actually right now everything that we are doing, all the optimizations, all the design ideas, we are testing it with the people who are adapted to the current ecosystem. And as we go, every month it's increasing, which is very good for us. And as we were doing our projects almost for more than 3 years in the virtual experience area, what we know for sure is the only way to create a great virtual experience is with the experience itself. So that's what we did to work with multiple brands and create various projects. We are not talking about hypothetical potentials. Everything that we are doing is coming with experience that we have seen with failures and successes altogether. Because there was such no thing as a metaverse education, right? And to be one of the early comers in the industry means that it gives you a responsibility to also educate yourself from the beginning. But right now, what we're doing is also give that to the community as we launched our education, where we educate people in various aspects of the metaverse.
Amazing. There's so many industries that are trying to integrate with Web3 and the metaverse. From a tourism perspective, of course, I've heard a few stories about, I think, Japanese airlines wanted to create virtual experiences for people that can't travel but still want to experience different parts of the world. And I know that you guys have had some basically creation in the tourism space. Do you guys work with the Turkish tourism board?
Yeah, we work with Turkish government for its media services. We are creating basically a broadcasting metaverse experience for TRT's 16 different channels, which is very interconnected with the tourism itself, because what we are doing in that project is create a three-dimensional storytelling for a news media company, which is also giving information by the geographical layers of the news that we are coming from. So for us, a metaverse design is not only about how we see this room, it's about how we are basically making all the elements, what we call as content or assets. We can call it both for this case, and how we are positioning them and how we are customizing that for that project. And if we are creating a three-dimensional news storytelling, then it means that if that news is broadcasted from New York, then we would be able to give that experience of that specific location and the importance of that news. So that kind of experiences are very interesting for us, because then makes it non-generic. It's not about meeting in a space and meeting with our avatars. It's about how can we get more layers and how can we actually give more than physical life. Because what we're always pushing our limits is we don't want to mimic the physical life as it is. And Faisal can elaborate more on this subject, because this is something that we don't compromise as a result. We would never be able to we would never want to create twins of the existing spaces or twins of the existing experiences. We do that, but we always add more layers to it, because that's what creates a good virtual experience. That's something that you cannot actually execute in the physical life. It's not about the technological constraints of physical life. It's about giving the full potential of being an avatar. It needs to be done.
Understood. Yeah.
Begum, I really like that perspective about utilizing the technology to create experiences that are not replicating real life, but creating experiences that you can't have in real life. I think that's there's so much opportunity within that. What are some of the challenges? I know through Illusource Studio you work with a variety of brands and departments, individuals to help educate, help people take their first steps. You mentioned earlier with regards to brands themselves. What are some of the key issues that brands are faced with when you first initiate conversation with them about taking a brand into the metaverse? I know a lot of our clients, they hear these buzzwords, they kind of get a little bit unsure. They know that they should be doing something in that space, but they haven't figured out what that looks like yet. So how do you help onboard a client and take them through their first steps?
Perhaps I can start off and then hand it over to Begum to add some more detail. But I think at first it's all about education, right? As you said, it's a buzzword at the moment, and not everyone is so comfortable or so knowledgeable about the space, especially in order to commission a complete project in the area. So the first thing that we do is try to educate the client in the macro of the metaverse, Web3, blockchain, and the specifics of what their industry perhaps could, potentially do in the space, and what we could do to contribute to that. So, for example, the macro would be first explaining what the metaverse is, and simply, stating that it's the future of the internet when it's integrated with XR, right, extended reality. So whether it's VR, AR, MR, whatever future other realities also come into place, and then also get deeper about the different types of platforms that exist at the moment. And we also have decks that we send out to clients, explaining how a platform like Spatial, for example, is different from a Decentraland, different from a Roblox, different from a Sandbox, Somnium, and all the other platforms that exist, all the different features, advantages, etc. And also what the difference is between hosting or creating a space on an existing metaverse platform versus creating your own kind of custom experience under your own domain, right? What are the advantages and disadvantages? And usually we give the advice that it's not an either or situation. It's actually both compatible, and they both actually help each other out. So, for example, the counterpart to that with the current internet today is the example of having an account on a social media platform like Instagram or Twitter, and also having your own website, right? So you can have an account on an existing metaverse platform and experience there, but also have your own custom experience under your domain, which is completely adaptable and customized to your own needs and your own kind of industry. So that's one thing, and then you kind of go into Sorry?
Sorry, Faisal, I was just going to say, I really like the example you gave of a website versus an account on a social platform. I think it's incredibly, it's very insightful, because it really does position it in the mind in the right way, right? So the traffic already exists on social channels, so you need to be where your customers already are, but then you want a more rich, integrated experience on your website, a space that you can own, a space that you can control, and a journey that you can manage. So you essentially looking for prospects or prospective customers, or engaging with your target audience in the various metaverses, so you say Roblox, Sandbox, Decentraland, etc., and then potentially bringing them across to your own space to have a richer experience, whatever that might be.
Exactly. Yeah, you put it perfectly. That's exactly what we kind of tell clients and advise them to do, right? Have both. It's always better to have that kind of cross-platform experience. And it also depends on what exactly their needs and their wants are in the metaverse. It could be, for example, to create and sell virtual products. It could be for advertising. It could be for just pure experiences. It could be for events. So different clients have different needs, and usually they might ask, what are the benefits of having this presence in the metaverse? And we also have like a whole report and research for this as well. And one that I usually like to use as an example is when it comes to like virtual products, for example, right? There's this Gucci bag that just over a year ago sold for more in the metaverse than in physical reality. Right, so in the physical world, it was about $3,400, but the actual virtual bag sold for over $4,000 on Roblox, which was very interesting to me, and that kind of gave an insight as to where the future of virtual products and
I wonder what that price is now, Faisal.
Oh, yeah. In the bear market, it'd be interesting to know exactly how much it is for sure. But what's interesting for me is not so much that specific example, but what it means for the future of virtual products, because it made me really think about what it means to have a virtual product versus a physical one, because both definitely have their advantages, right? Even something as simple as like wear and tear, right? When you buy like a physical product, obviously it has wear and tear, and over the years it might degrade and so on. But a virtual product doesn't really have that. It doesn't have that wear and tear nature to it, because it's not physical. And also, it doesn't have the limitation of, not being able to carry it around everywhere that you are. For example, if you're going to travel, you can't carry all your belongings with you, right? Or you're just in your day-to-day activities. But as a virtual product, you can literally turn on and off any product you have at any time. So you kind of have it with you at all times. So there's just these kind of fundamental differences. And it's just very interesting for me, especially as a researcher, kind of thinking about what these differences are and where the future of, the space is headed. But yeah, for sure, these are kind of just examples and educational services as well that we offer to clients, which I think is very important when stepping into a new industry like this.
Cool. I think from a creative perspective, I've got a few questions that I'd like to know your thoughts on as well. How much of the creators community, and by that I mean anybody who's interested to come in and learn how to create an experience or actively do something in the metaverse that is of a creation nature versus an experiential audience. And the reason why I'm asking that is because, of course, there are so many different creators on the social platforms. Do you feel like we're gonna start seeing the emerge of creators in the metaverse, and how can platforms support those creators to create things in the metaverse?
I think that's a great question. And I think that has to do with the nature of Web3 and the nature of the metaverse itself, right? Because that's one of the most fundamental differences between Web 2 and Web 3, and especially the kind of ethos of the metaverse. Having creators become a fundamental part of ownership as well in the metaverse, right? That's the whole concept of whether it's blockchain or NFTs or these kind of new assets in the metaverse, giving creators the ability to create, monetize, trade, and own these assets that they create for the metaverse. So for sure, I think it's a very, very healthy environment for the creators, especially in kind of our space. We come from the avant-garde sector of architecture, right? These kind of like frontiers where people really experiment and put boundaries. And pretty much everyone in the space has delved, straight into the metaverse, especially recently in the last year or so. Everyone's kind of experimenting in the space, creating NFT projects, creating spaces and experiences on existing platforms. A lot of people are, reaching out to us to also work with us and create these amazing projects. We also have, our Creators Collective program. We have a verification system as well for our platform where we have verified creators, where we collaborate to create, different collections and projects. So I think it's a very, very healthy and exciting space for creators at the moment. But in terms of like the general public, I think this also has to do with the adoption question earlier. I think what's happening now is we are at a very early stage of a new macro innovation. So the way I like to look at it is you can compare it to the internet, right? To Web 1.0 and Web 2.0. So I usually say, the same way the internet was contingent on computers to become successful, and social media was contingent on mobile phones to become successful, I believe the metaverse is contingent on a specific type of device to really become a household name, to really become the kind of technology and innovation that every single person on the planet is not only aware of, but is involved in. And I believe, and this is just my personal opinion based on, the research I've been doing over the past couple of years, but I believe that device is, smart glasses. I believe once that is really done and done right, it's going to replace the current internet that we have. And that's when, mass adoption becomes quite obvious, at a macro scale. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on, creators versus the general public in the metaverse space. I think it's a healthy environment at the moment, and it's only getting better over the years.
Absolutely, and I would like to add a few points on that. The way that we are enabling the creators, communities, and people in the creative industry that are motivated to create for the metaverse, we are actually hosting a Creative Collectors program. And within the Creators Collective program, we are creating verified creators by Elizor, to be able to operate in Elizor's Metaverse projects. So this project and this program is quite unique for us because what we realized is the working methodology, working model is highly changing in the current creative economy. It's not like a normal employee-employer model. And as everything is shifting, the way that people are working, the way that creative economy is operating is changing as well. And what is really important for us is for people not creating for that moment's hype. And if we are talking about a successful metaverse creator, artist, sometimes it might be misleading to see some very appealing visuals artistically, but it's not about purely visuals anymore. Everything is interconnected with the technology and the future of the technology as well. So a great teamwork and community, collective community, is very important. So it's not the time for being quoting this like a solo artist. It's a very collaborative environment. It's actually basically the essence of Web 3.0, no? Web 3.0 is bringing us a new way of also decentralized working. And I think we're adapting it to our ecosystem as well. Right, Faisal?
Very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I mean, with the rise of the new, of course, like, AI art, I think the threshold of creating something visually interesting is becoming super low now. And anybody can, the accessibility of great looking, interesting images is becoming more and more accessible for people to create. So I think it's more about that community that you can build around you and what's perhaps the story and narrative behind your art pieces that people would want to buy into as well. But that's super cool. I think, from and I really connect with what you were saying, Faisal, about that one product that's going to, give accessibility for a lot of people to experience, whether it's a hybrid reality or the metaverse or, an elements of the digital world in the real world as well. Do you feel a complete immersion in the metaverse space, something similar to Spatial or any of the other platforms as a metaverse space versus the hybrid reality, or where we kind of wear the glasses and you're going out and you're using those functionalities? What version of those two do you think is going to become more useful for us and more popular?
So I think you're hinting at exactly what I'm saying, right? Because I think the reason, for example, we have VR goggles which are very, very optimized actually at the moment. They're still improving with the Oculus, of course, the Meta Quest being the leader in the space, but it's still being improved. But I think at the moment it's very optimized and very functional. But the problem is people don't really want to be completely cut off from physical reality. No matter how great the metaverse is, people still want to have some sort of connection with the physical world that they, have evolved over 500,000 years or whatever to kind of, be optimized in. But having a sort of device that allows you to seamlessly transition between the metaverse and the physical reality, between virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, and physical reality, something that allows you to really be in both places at once, is going to be the type of device that most people would be, kind of more likely to invest in, more likely to use on a daily basis. And also, I think another thing is the spaces or the experiences that people will tend to use more in the future are not so much the worlds, right? It's not so much the large scale kind of these gamified or game-like worlds. Is more so very specific curated experiences, much like the one we're in right now. Because the internet is not exactly physical reality. As Begum was saying earlier, it's not physical reality just kind of transitioned or replicated in the virtual world. It's more so experiences and the internet being transitioned into a more immersive environment. So it's activities that you currently do on the internet, right? Things like having meetings, right? Things like perhaps maybe social media or social spaces, things like streaming, whether it's music or movies or other kind of content. It's activities that you currently do, or even like banking or whatever activities you might do on the current internet, but creating a spatialized, immersive experience of that in the metaverse. And I think this is a perfect example of that, because normally we might have done this on a, video conference call that uses, the normal 2D configuration, but this is a lot more immersive. Mm-hmm. And you can only imagine how much better this gets once you have a, device that kind of optimizes the experience as well.
When we have accurate avatars, will be a good start, right? But Faisal, really interesting what you were saying there about the progression of internet rather than, let's say, real life spaces. I think this is a good segue into tourism in the metaverse. It's something that we focus on as an agency extensively in the culture and tourism space, and we believe that tourism is potentially going to be one of the most significantly impacted industries by the development of the metaverse in many different ways. whether that be through mini experiences, curated experiences, although that would be from taking real life experiences and trying to replicate elements of them in the metaverse. I think the recent announcements from Abu Dhabi, just I think today or yesterday, with regards to moving Yas Island into the metaverse, and they were trying to replicate the entirety of Yas Island in different ways, from buying property, renting property, socializing, play, create, transact, and all sorts. And they're building that out on they were a little bit unclear in terms of the press release whether they're building that in Sandbox, Roblox, or both, or a third environment which is specifically owned by them. So maybe there's a few different things that will actually play out. But the announcements have said that they're launching this in Q1 of next year, which will be really interesting to see how that does work. And where do you see the biggest opportunities in the tourism space? We're in a location in Dubai in the UAE that's very heavily reliant on the tourism industry. So it'll be interesting to see how Dubai's metaverse strategy, UAE's wider strategy, and what they're doing in Abu Dhabi actually plays out and has an effect on the tourism industry here. Where do you see the biggest opportunities in that space?
It's a huge opportunity, and there are several opportunities to be created in the tourism space. From the visual side and storytelling side, it's a multi-layered approach that we can create. For example, to give the idea of a space, idea of a location, not with just the videos or photos, all of them coming together with the 3D elements as well, is really making people very, very interested in that space and interactivity as well. And even the avatar, can you imagine you design an avatar that is specifically representing that one unique element of that tourism area? And all of these things, because tourism is also about creating experiences, physical experiences that people are going to remember over the years of, after a year, you remember that space that you went, even if it's afar or very close by. And to create that simulations in the virtual industry is very important. But not only that, even buying a ticket, that's an experience itself that is maybe changing your decisions. Maybe you understand something that you wouldn't be able to get that information from a two-dimensional mentality website. Because even, I'm sure you know the best in that, even to create that curation of multiple information that you squeeze one landing page. Are we enough? Is it enough for that? Our minds are also expanding together with all the technological developments. Our minds, human mind, is right now able to process a lot of amount of data, which is, of course, psychologically might be overwhelming for us. By the way, we have been, Faisal, as our research director, can give more information about that, but we have been involved in a lot of academic research studies about the relationship between the neuroscience and human brain and the metaverse itself. And we have been conducting the research in Oxford University to contribute that research. But coming to our point, if you can imagine the amount of time and the linear information flow in your brain when you're in a website, whereas in a space like this, with our mouse, we can just see a 360 degree of everything, and maybe in 5 seconds, I can get your names and the logo of the space, and everything fits in a non-linear way. So tourism is a very good opportunity to do that, because then the experience that you are basically offering, you are creating the things that you cannot do in the physical life as well. So there are lots of supporting industries of tourism, and to be able to host that supporting industries in the metaverse is also very important.
I think it gives people the opportunity. It's almost like a try before you buy, right? I think it gives us the opportunity. I agree with what you're saying in terms of the mixed experiences, going back to your earlier point, that can only happen in the metaverse or in some sort of a hybrid, way. But I remember seeing a video quite early on in these conversations, and it might have been put out by Microsoft, or maybe it was Meta, Facebook back then. But it was somebody walking through the streets of Rome back, 1,000 years ago, and it was very realistic. And they were walking through the streets of Rome, and the sights, the sounds, they were engaging with what was going on there. And I just thought that the example that was being used was for education. So imagine trying to teach children about ancient Rome, but actually just walking through the streets and being able to almost be like a tour guide. And then it got me thinking a lot about tourism and the ability for people to experience something as realistic as possible before they actually choose to visit in real life. And back to Faisal's earlier point, when the graphics catch up and we can do this in ultra high definition and as close to reality as possible, there'll be an incredible way to somewhat experience a location, whether it be it could be a destination, it could be a cultural site, it could be the tallest building in the world, it could be all of these things. But I think there's a real opportunity for people to experience things before they decide to jump on an airplane and fly to a location. So I see that as a real opportunity as well.
Absolutely. And also, I would like to add one point on that. We need to be honest to ourselves and to our communities that there are some certain physical experiences that we don't even need to replicate them in the digital life. Like, it's for the physical life. For example, going in sea, swimming, right? If I am going to a space for specifically that reason, like, there's no point of trying to, that's in my opinion, trying to mimic that. But if we can, in this, let's say, early metaverse era, if we can define what is good in hybrid, what is good in virtual, what is good in physical, how can we improve that hybridness, digitalness of it is very important. Like, the most common question that we both, Faisal and I, are facing is like, yeah, but like, what will happen when everything is going to be metaverse? Like, would we want to live in that? No, of course we are. It's uncomparable. I really never compared my physical experience with the digital one in terms of if it's not a meeting. But if it's a meeting, if it's a social aspect, it changes in the way that we always do that. I think with the virtualness of the communication started with the adaptation of the meeting, like different platforms before the metaverse, 2D ones. But basically, the social aspect is also very important for the tourism as well. Like, then it comes to the community perspective. Maybe I am meeting with the language groups there that is supporting my experience.
Absolutely.
I think it's super interesting.
Perfect. Yeah.
I was just going to say, you touched on something that I'll probably want to dig a little bit deeper on as well, in terms of the human evolution or the connection between our technology today and, from a neuroscience perspective. How much of the, let's take the new generation, for example. When we were growing up, there wasn't anything called the Metaverse, Web3, or, this other verse that we can kind of explore. How much of that do you think will impact our human evolution? And also, I think in my opinion, we're a little bit of, all of us are kind of like cyborgs walking around with our phones. Nobody can live without their phone probably for you wouldn't be comfortable living without their phone. So I think the integration between technology and our day-to-day life is already there. But as we integrate even more, how do you think that will impact whether it's our social behaviors, our evolution in general? What's your thoughts on that?
So I can talk about that a little bit. So this is actually ongoing research being done at the moment. And honestly, there's not enough long-term data to give a comprehensive answer for this. And, no one in the world can give you a direct, comprehensive answer for it. But based on all the ongoing research and all the peer-reviewed, papers being published and the experiments being done at the moment, there's specific kind of like detail that you can give. For example, when it comes to complete immersive experiences, like in virtual reality, there might be some restrictions for certain people. For example, it might not be advisable for kids under the age of 11 or 13 to be completely immersed in these experiences all the time, all day. Or it might not be advisable for women who might be pregnant to have certain kinds of experiences in the metaverse. But for the general public, it's usually there's not that much limitations. What, for example, an optometrist or a neuroscientist might advise is that you maximize your time spent in complete immersion to 30 to 45 minutes per session. And if you're planning to go longer than that in complete immersion, there's certain kind of eye drops that you can take in order to keep your eyes from going dry and to keep your eyes focused as well during that experience. So there's for example, all of these different experiments and papers being published in space. But at the same time, while all of this is being done, the technology itself is also being built and innovated in order to adapt to all of the restrictions and all of the limitations that currently exist. And I know that MetaQuest is researching and working very, very heavily in this area. They also have a very, very advanced research team, and they actually have different research programs where they pay different universities and different think tanks to do research for them in order to improve on their technology as well. So I think the future of the technology is actually going to be better than what currently exists, because I think talking about evolution, for example, human beings evolved, especially when it comes to our whether it's psychology, our eyesight, or our own belt, as they call it in philosophy. I think we evolved in order to experience reality in 3 dimensions or 4-dimensional space-time, right? Not to experience the world in 2 dimensions through whether it's mobile phones or computers or whatever devices kind of have screens. So I think it's actually a lot more compatible with our evolutionary nature, right? To have some sort of device that's connected to our eyes that allows us to experience 3-dimensional spaces as opposed to just 2-dimensional images or videos on a device. And just to kind of maybe speak a little bit more abstractly in the future of where the space is headed, smart glasses, I believe, are the mid to long-term future. But the long-term future of this space or technology is actually going to transition into BMIs, brain-machine interfaces. And I know this might sound like a bit of a far stretch at the moment.
Are we talking about the Neuralink?
With projects like Neuralink. Yeah, exactly. Projects like Neuralink at the moment, what Elon Musk is doing. I believe that is the future of where all of this is headed, connecting with the AIs and with the internet and with each other as well.
For sure. And I think you're absolutely right. I think the whole 3-dimensional to 4-dimensional aspect of the metaverse, as it develops and as it gets a lot more intricate, it's perhaps even the lines between the real reality and the meta reality will kind of be very, very thin. And also just want to shed some light on AI. I think we've seen the very fast evolution of AI in let's say the imagery world and even like video world. You can type a few words in a sentence and these amazing imagery starts showing up. How much of that do you think will get to play in the metaverse world by creating experiences or even spaces in the metaverse through those AI machine learning programs?
Yeah, so in our space right now, that's a very, very big thing. Over the last I'll say 4 to 5 months, I can't go on my Instagram without seeing a complete timeline of DALL-E or Midjourney images being generated by creators, and it's very exciting what's happening. But I believe this is only the very, very start of what's about to happen, because once the technology of computer vision kind of transfers from, especially right now, it's very big in the self-driving car industry. Machine learning and using computer vision is basically using AI and machine learning to understand objects and images, right? What objects actually are. So when a computer takes a picture of a car, actually knowing that okay, that's a car, that's a house, etc. So once that actually transfers into creation or design, and it's able to not only create 2D images but 3D spaces and objects, I believe that is going to take things to a whole nother level. And that is slightly related to what me and Begum were speaking about earlier with what we're doing through Elusa technology. So we're also creating a design-oriented asset generator. And the idea behind this is to use both our very specific design language and our expertise in design to allow users to generate their own assets and their own content for the metaverse. So just by picking certain features or different attributes, and also using machine learning to kind of train the algorithms as to the preferences of the user themselves. So the user might not know what their preferences exactly are. Because, as crazy as that might sound today, computers and algorithms actually understand us better than we do ourselves, right? They can suggest things that we might not know, we might not have known to suggest to ourselves. So using also training, machine learning and AIs, you can actually generate assets that, humans or, users and the audience might want as well. So I think AI will definitely play a very, very big part in the metaverse and in creation of assets. But right now, I think the 2D content is only a very, very small start of what's about to come in the future with like 3D complete spaces and, complete models and 3D objects and so on. So it's very, very exciting for sure.
I think, Tom, we need to start working on an AI machine learning for our clients to write their scopes.
Absolutely. It's a whole different ballgame when we go down that route. Faisal, really interesting what you're saying there. If I was a creator, let's say we have a large creative team at the agency, what advice would you be giving to an art director from the more traditional sense of the term with regards to where things will be going next? Because what you basically said is that there's the commoditization of a lot of the content that's being produced today, right? So if you're in that space currently and that's your employment, what would you advise people in that space to be looking at and what direction to be going
in? Okay, so there's two things I would say. The first is how to monetize and how to contribute to the ongoing, I would say Web3 space. And the second is to how to adapt to the innovation of the technologies of the future. Because, when it comes to AI and machine learning, or just technology in general, anytime new technology comes about which threatens an industry, a lot of people are scared to the future of, whether they'll have jobs and whatnot. And this is not only specific to creators or designers. This is basically any industry in the world, right? But when it comes to AI specifically right now for designers, and this is a conversation I have a lot with like architects and designers as well. But when it comes to creators in general, I think the best thing to do is to really try to interface and adapt to what is to come. Because if you see it as a threat, then it might become a threat, right? If you see it as a threat in the sense that you don't want to use, for example, AI generators or algorithms to, integrate into your, methodology or whatever, then it might become a threat because people that do might become a lot more efficient than you. But if you really understand what AIs are, which are basically just, senseless algorithms, just, binary digits, ones and zeros, just processing information in a way that human beings can't, not actually thinking for themselves or creating for themselves. They're only doing the bidding of what the coder of the computer engineer, initiates. Once you understand that, just that very basic fundamental notion of what AIs are, then it becomes a lot less threatening for a creator, right? It becomes a lot more inviting to collaborate as a co-author as well.
Because then it's just a tool, right? I mean, you could look at this from
exactly.
Let's look at in our industry and how the landscape has changed over the last years. If you look at traditional agencies versus digital agencies, there was a lot of people that didn't necessarily adapt and are employed in different ways now. The industry moved quite quickly, and some people, to be honest, got left behind, and and others flourished. So I think, as with all changing technologies, it's about adaptation, right? As you've said, it's about being inquisitive, being curious, investigating what's coming next, and making sure that not necessarily leading the charge, but you're not getting left behind either, because like it or not, things are going to be changing. I think there's exponential change across so many areas of our lives. I think the next decade or two is going to be the level of disruption I don't think anyone can really fathom at the moment. From blockchain technology changing the way governments operate, the way the banking system and the entire financial system across the globe works, that there will be so much disruption in so many of these spaces that there will be jobs that are created and there will be jobs that become obsolete.
Absolutely, and that's another thing I wanted to say. The kind of the blockchain integration and how creators should really understand the benefits of using blockchain technology, right? Really understand why it's beneficial or why it's useful to integrate blockchain into your methodology, and trade, monetize, and own this technology using blockchain. It's the best thing to do at the moment is, once you create, try to document or try to mint everything as an NFT, or just some sort of blockchain integration into your workflow, because the future of digital content is going to be blockchain integrated. And if you don't start now, then you might get left behind, as as you said about creative agencies in the past and not transitioning to digital.
One last question from me. To Begum, to Faisal, to either of you. If we look around the world at the moment, the world is not in a great place. Geopolitically, macroeconomically, the situation in many regions is not looking particularly good at this point. The inevitable impact on the investment and speculation in Web3, crypto, Metaverse projects, etc. In that context, where do you see the industry going from here? We've spoken about the Web3 or crypto winter. Things are not in the best place at this point, but how do you see this as part of the journey, and where do we go from here?
We will wait and see, that's for sure. I will give that political answer, but other than that, I think with all things happening, good and bad and good, in the world right now, one thing that people adopted, which is, I think, a very good behavior, is we learn to have a multiple hats. So everyone is kind of, it's not about only the Web 3.0, but where we are as human beings is kind of very multitasking, like multi-profession. So nobody is accepting a limit anymore. Everyone is kind of responsible for their passions. That's my observation. But also, there are lots of tools available for people to improve themselves and to be able to have multiple decisions, or change your decision, change your career, have a contribution to your specific area of interest. So I know this might sound a bit, very optimistic, but I think this kind of attitude change in human is what's going to bring a very fast adaptability to the conditions that we're facing, which we call negative right now. Of course, not everything is on our hands as the individuals. There are lots of different things happening in the world, in the governmental levels, or not even that, in the climate level, in environmental level. But also, as humans, we are evolving to more aware individuals. And to come to the point of a metaverse and design, I believe we are all getting more creative. So if you can imagine a kid right now that is interfacing with such technologies from this age, can you imagine the creativity difference between like our generation, the generation before? Creativity is not a profession. It's not coming with architecture or, going to an art school. Creativity is one of the essence of a human being. We are all born as part of our creativity. So this is the time where collectively as human beings, our creativity is more triggered. And I'm very curious to see how that will affect on people's action, that creativity improvement and the eye improvement, artistic direction feelings. And it's very exciting to say that as an architect, to really have more broad people and also a community who's looking for good designs. This is something that it was considered as a luxury before that. Right now, the design is not a luxury. It's an essential for Web 3.0 for it to evolve.
Absolutely. I fully agree. And I think if we're not the ones that are optimistic and positive about it, then who is?
Yeah, look at us now. First podcast in spatial. Hopefully, we'll evolve into other spaces and other metaverses. But guys, thank you very much for joining us on this podcast and spending time with us in the space.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, it's been very cool.
Such a pleasure.
Next time, hopefully we're in your space in Illustrator. It would be great to have a guided tour and maybe build that into a second podcast.
We should definitely do that.
Absolutely.
Amazing. Okay, well, team, thank you so much for joining us. We really do appreciate it. We're obviously connected with some work things in the background as well. And hopefully we build this relationship and get to spend more time with you. And it's been fascinating for myself, learning from both of you. And I'm sure our listeners are going to be really engaged with this because you've given us a lot of value in the last hour. So thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. See you.